Thank you, Reverend Schaefer. The Cathedral of the Year was conceived by the Reverend Gil Rob Wilson, one-time National Chaplain of the American Legion. The church was erected in 1932, not only intended to serve the military personnel serving the Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst, but also to commemorate the history of aviation through its stained glass windows. Shining through the colorful stained glass are beautiful depictions of humanity's quest to reach the heavens. It begins with the mess of Pegasus and Icarus wax wings. The 18 panels then gradually lead along the history of human flight, from the experimentation with lighter-than-air travel, such as the Zeppelin to airships, to the Wright brothers pioneering airplane flight. It also serves as a destination for visitors to the Hindenburg crash site, which tragically caught fire while attempting to land at the base. Surrounded by pine trees, this beautiful chapel is an unexpected gem at the air station. Aside from the stained glass windows, at the front of the church near the entrance are memorials to the warriors who lost their lives in the tragic crashes of the USS Akron and the USS Shenandoah airships, both being based at Naval Lakehurst Air Station. At this time, Department Vice Commander Sophia DeMock, please come to the podium.
On February 3rd, 2024, marks the 81st anniversary of the sinking of the UST Dorchester, a very special display of bravery. On that day in 1943, a torpedo struck the ship, reducing its time afloat on the surface of the Atlantic to only an additional 20 minutes. What happened during those few minutes is the reason we remember this day and the acts of courage and sacrifice that took place on her deck every year since. 4 first lieutenants gave the supreme sacrifice that day, each one an Army chaplain. They included a Methodist minister, the Reverend George L. Fox, Reformed Rabbi Alexander D. Goody, Roman Catholic priest, the Reverend John P. Washington, and Reformed Church in America minister, the Reverend Clark V. Poland. Their backgrounds, personalities, and faiths were different. They had met at Army Chaplain School at Harvard University, where they became friends as they prepared for service in the European theater, all sailing aboard USAT Dorchester to report to their new assignments, all having one God as their father. The torpedoes knocked down the Dorchester's electrical system, leaving the ship dark. Panic set in among the men on board, many of them trapped below decks. The chaplain sought to calm the men and organize an orderly evacuation of the ship and help the guided wounded men to safety. As life jackets were passed out to the men, the supply ran out before each man had one. The chaplains removed their own life jackets and gave them to others. They helped as many men as they could into lifeboats, and then linked arms and saying prayers and singing hymns went down with the ship. As I swam away from the ship, I looked back. The flares had lighted everything. The bow came up high, and she slid under. The last thing I saw, the 4 chaplains were up there praying for the safety of the men. They had done everything they could. I did not see them again. They themselves did not have a chance without their life jackets. Grady Clark, survivor. At this time, Vice Commander Mary Jo Burkhart.
Good afternoon. George L. Fox. George, the oldest of the 4, knew all about war. Lying about his age in 1917, he enlisted in the Army as a Medical Corps assistant. He won a Silver Star for rescuing a wounded soldier from a battlefield filled with poison gas, the Croix de Gras for outstanding bravery in an artillery barrage, and the Purple Heart for wounds. A resident of Vermont, he was a successful accountant and family man when he heard God's call to the ministry. Fox went back to school and later was ordained into the Methodist denomination. When war came, he once again enlisted, telling his wife, "I've got to go. I know from experience what our boys are about to face. They need me." At this time in his life, he was the American Legion Department chaplain and historian for the state of Vermont. Fox began active duty on August 8, 1942, and served until that fateful morning of February 3, 1943. I light this candle for George L. Fox. At this time, may Alice Marples come.
Chaplain Alexander D. Good. Alexander was both an outstanding athlete and scholar. Following in his father's footsteps, this young man, known for his laughter, his love of life, became a rabbi. While studying for his calling, he joined the National Guard and kept up an active membership. The return of the body of the unknown soldier had a profound effect on Good. He attended the ceremonies, choosing to walk the 30 miles rather than drive or take a bus because he thought it showed more respect. Good married his childhood sweetheart and was serving a synagogue in York, Pennsylvania, when World War II broke out. He served on active duty from August 9, 1942 until February 3, 1943. I light this candle for Alexander Good. I now call up Department Vice Commander David Snowdy.
Clark V. Poling. Clark was the youngest of 4 chaplains and the 7th generation in his family to be ordained in the Dutch Reformed Church. When war came, he was anxious to go, but not as a chaplain. "I'm not going to hide behind the church in some safe office out of the firing line," he told his father. The elder Poling replied, "Don't you know that chaplains had the highest mortality rate of all? As a chaplain, you'll have the best chance in the world to be killed. You just can't carry a gun to kill anyone yourself." So Clark Poling left his pastorate in Schenectady, New York, and enlisted as a chaplain. Just before he left for active duty, Clark asked his father to pray for him, "Not for my safe return. That would not be fair. Just pray that I shall do my duty and have the strength, courage, and understanding of men. Just pray that I shall be adequate." Poling began active duty on June 10, 1942, and served until February 3, 1943. I light this candle for Clark V. Poling. Now I'll call up Department Vice Commander Anthony Santinello.
John grew up poor, scraping, and determined in the toughest section of Newark, New Jersey, one of the 9 children born to an Irish immigrant family. He was blessed with a sunny disposition, a beautiful singing voice, and a love for music. He also loved a good fight and was a leader of the South 12th Street Gang. When he was called to the priesthood, he played ball with the boys of the parish, organized sports teams, and when war came along, went with his boys into the Army. He began active duty on May 9th, 1942. His wonderful voice, raised in song and prayer to the comfort of those around him could be heard until the final moments of February 3rd, 1943. I light this candle for John Washington. At this time,
I light this last candle for the 632 souls that also lost their life on the Dorchester.